Cool. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Welcome to the first talk today. It is about understanding PDA. Sorry, I have a very quiet voice, so should I just hold it? Sorry. Yeah, maybe I'll just hold it. It'll be fine. Don't worry. So this is understanding PDA. So about me, my name is Sorka Rice. I'm autistic, ADHD, and PDA. I'm a senior occupational therapist and the clinical manager of Neurodiversity Ireland. I share my lived experience on Instagram, and I'm very passionate about highlighting practical supports for neurodivergent individuals. Sorry, I'm multitasking. This is very difficult for me. Just a copyright notice that this presentation is my original work and shared for your personal learning only. Please do not copy, reproduce, photograph, or distribute any parts of these slides without my permission. So to understand PDA, I think I was thinking about talking about PDA a lot this morning, and I was reflecting on, I do online parent consults, and so many times parents will come to me and be like, oh, I'm not sure if they're PDA, like sometimes I can see that they're PDA, sometimes they're not, and so I'm just not sure. And I think that it's coming from an understanding that PDA is very similar to oppositional defiance disorder, which obviously hate the term ODD. But when you think about ODD, you're thinking about oppositional. So you're thinking about a PDA, it has a lot of survival responses. They're kind of outwardly defiant. I think when people meet me, sometimes people can't imagine that I'm PDA, but trust me, I am. My family and people that are closest to me see my survival responses. It just depends on how safe I feel around you, depending on what type of survival response my nervous system shows. So I think hopefully what you get from this talk today is trying to let go of PDA kind of having to be that outward oppositional defiant person. PDA is all about your nervous system, and it's a highly sensitive nervous system. I think I see so many parents that have a PDA or child, and then they start to realize, oh, maybe I'm PDA. They can relate to what their child experiences, but they have been people pleasers their entire lives, and it just shows up in different ways, but you still have a highly sensitive nervous system. So that was a tangent, but hopefully my presentation will make sense. So to understand PDA, it's really important that we understand our nervous system. So what I think about the nervous system is it's just to think about its job is to keep us safe. It's constantly scanning our body, the environment, and other people, and it decides, am I safe or am I in danger? So at the moment, all your nervous systems are thinking about your own bodies. I found that chair so uncomfortable. Yesterday, my back was killing me. So my nervous system was taking in how my body felt in those chairs. Obviously, you can get up and move around. There's also, if you're a bit nervous to do this in here, but you shouldn't be, but just in case you are, there's a room behind us that you can obviously stand up, move around, and do whatever you want. But our nervous system is scanning our body. So my nervous system was saying oh, I'm a bit uncomfortable. It's also scanning the environment. So if you're a speaker up here, it is very warm. I don't know, sitting down there, if it's very warm for you. But you're constantly scanning the environment and then other people. So if someone gets up and runs out the door, your nervous system is like, ooh, what are they doing? Am I safe or am I in danger? And obviously, if someone got up and screamed and ran out, I'd say everyone would run out with them. But yeah, so that's all you have to think about is for the nervous system is it's deciding if you're safe or if you're in danger. So our regulation, our nervous system is constantly fluctuating from minute to minute across the day with sensory load, social pressure, unpredictability, sleep, hunger, how safe the environment feels. So I think when we think about the nervous system and regulation, so many people think about it as a snapshot in time. So like you just do a move and break and then you're regulated for the whole day, or you just go to the gym and then you're regulated for the whole day. But you would know that just because you went to the gym in the morning, you could still have a really stressful day in work and you still need to regulate your nervous system. So it's constantly fluctuating. I don't know if anyone has to commute on the M50. I don't know if there's American people online, but the M50 is like this terrible motorbike that is really overcrowded. Yeah, so just because, like, say it was Friday yesterday, say you had a great day in work and you're like, it's the weekend, I'm so excited, you're regulated getting into your car. Just because you started out your journey regulated, if you hit traffic and have road rage like me, you might get really dysregulated in the car. And so it's constantly fluctuating in the car. Then you might turn on your favorite song and scream sing along to it. Or you might have a cup of coffee or a drink to drink. So you're constantly regulating through your nervous system fluctuating. I think that's really important. I think when I find that when I'm working in schools, is that in primary school, although there's not enough support, there are some support. So children are getting movement breaks. They are being supported to regulate their nervous system. In secondary, in secondary school, there isn't as many supports. So basically what happens is children are supported to regulate their nervous systems. They might have a nice sensory room in primary school. Then they get to secondary school and there's nothing. And on top of that, they're going through all the hormones and the difficult times of being a teenager. And so they actually need more regulation. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that what we're trying to do is empower younger children to listen to their own nervous systems, figure out how to regulate so that they're set up for anything that they experience, like secondary school. So I jumped ahead of myself, but yeah. So sorry. So this is important because with your nervous system and regulation, just because a student or your child is able to do something one day doesn't mean that they're able to do the next day. And I think that can be really stressful for teachers and parents. It's because it's like, oh, well, they were able to get dressed one day, the next day they're not. What should I do? Should I tell them they have to get dressed, or do some handwriting or something? And it's really hard to understand and then know the support that you should give. But I would always look at it as their fluctuating capacity, and like if they're not able to do something, I would reflect and say, okay, they need support with regulation in this moment. I think that's a big thing for PDAers as well. So when there's too much pressure on their nervous system, they might not be able to get dressed, they might not be able to feed themselves. And so parents are maybe supporting them with toileting or dressing them, and parents can worry that they're doing the wrong thing by supporting them. I think it's really important to know that your child knows how to get dressed. They just don't have capacity in the moment. So you're not doing the right thing, or you are doing the right thing, oh my God. But you're just supporting their nervous system in that moment. If you were here for my talk yesterday, this is my drawing that I did on Canva, trying to highlight your fluctuating capacity so throughout the day and the regulation supports you need. So if you didn't sleep well and your window is a bit closed and you're a bit dysregulated, then you might have a crunchy snack or your favorite breakfast. That might open up your window a bit and regulate you. You might go in to school and you might have difficulty with handwriting or reading. If you're dyslexic, that's going to add pressure on your nervous system, so you're going to need more regulation. So you might have a knead dough with you or a hug-a-lumps. Everyone should feel a hug-a-lumps before you leave. I'll talk about that at the end. But you're constantly trying to regulate your nervous system against your fluctuating capacity. What I found. So I was on the in-school therapy pilot program. The deputy principal is here. I don't know where you are, but there you are. Sorry. Jessie is here, which is very exciting. But what I found working in saplings was that everyone was very dysregulated in the classrooms, and everyone was holding it together to get out onto yard. So the yard is amazing. There's a zip line and a rock climbing wall and so many cool things. But basically what was happening is every student and teacher and SNA's window was kind of narrowing, and everyone was like, I just need to hold it together to get onto yard. And then they'd go out on yard, and because their window is so close, they might be more dysregulated and might have more survival responses, but then they're trying to regulate and then go back to the classroom. So what we tried to do was look at the environment and create regulation options throughout, so everyone wasn't holding it all together. So we adapted the classrooms, we created regulation halls, and so as they were becoming dysregulated in the classroom, they had regulation options all around them. So because I'm autistic, I am so literal. So I like the window of tolerance, but obviously don't agree with the word tolerance. So I prefer the window of capacity, but I've taken it very literally and I've pictured an actual window. So to me, when I think about the nervous system, is I think about the curtains as demands and pressure building up on your nervous system. And as your curtains get more closed, you're going to have reduced capacity and you're going to be more dysregulated. This is the pyramid of learning. So this explains why regulation comes first always. At the bottom of the pyramid is our nervous system. I forgot I had a laser pointer, but so this is our nervous system down here. And this shows that the foundation of everything is regulation. And above it, there is body awareness, motor planning, auditory language skills, and at the top is learning. So if you're a bit dysregulated today, you're rushing to get here, it's going to be a lot harder to listen to what I'm saying. But as hopefully you become more regulated throughout this presentation and the day, it's going to be easier to listen to me and take in learning. So now about PDA, which is why everyone is here. So PDA is a nervous system survival drive for autonomy. It's a lot of words, but it's just a highly sensitive nervous system. When our nervous systems sense a demand or pressure, our nervous system, remember, its job is to say, are we safe or are we in danger? Our nervous system says, we're not safe. And then we're going to protect ourselves by having a survival response. I think, well, I won't get ahead of myself. So I think when I hear from parents, loads of parents have said that they're low demand and they've got rid of all demands and they've stopped doing demands and stuff. I think that comes from the idea that demands are just verbal instruction. So it's like, get your shoes on, get dressed, so parents stop doing the verbal instructions, and so they're saying that they're low demand, or teachers will say the same thing, but it's not really understanding what demands and pressure are. So obviously there are some demands that are direct instructions. Jessica talked yesterday about declarative language. That's making comments. I think it's really interesting because as a PDAer, I naturally communicate through declarative language. So I'll make statements. I don't really ask questions. Sometimes I do, but you know what I mean. So I will tend to make statements like, ooh, this cow is the best thing ever. And I'm absolutely obsessed with Huggalumps. So I'm saying statements instead of like, ooh, do you like Huggalumps? So I would notice so many PDAers communicate through statements, not questions. But part of demands are external demands, so saying something. It's only one small piece. I love this stick figure drawing because I feel like it perfectly explains what communication means and feels like to me. questions and kind of conversations add a lot of pressure onto my nervous system. If I already have reduced capacity, I tend to go very quiet, and people tend to then ask me so many questions. And so this is how it feels. So you can see me being like, and you can see the stick figures going into a survival response and protecting myself with the weight of the pressure of questions. Another type of external demand is our environment. So I hear all the time, like say in schools or from parents, is their PDA might say, "Oh, I really want to go to the playground or the beach. I'm so excited to go to the beach." Then you drive all the way there and they won't get out of the car. And it's like, I don't understand. But that's because our environment is also a demand. Because I think about, like, do you know if you walked into the kitchen, you would feel pressure to be like, well, maybe you don't, but you might feel pressure to be like, oh, I'm in the kitchen, I should cook something or I should eat, because no one has to tell you. But when you walk into a kitchen, that's what's expected. If you walked into this room, obviously all the chairs are set up, lined up, everyone is sitting down. So without anyone saying to you, you have to come in and sit down and be quiet and listen. That's just our environment speaking to you and putting a demand on your nervous system. I find I obviously went through school burnout as a teenager, so I find secondary schools really difficult to walk into because I feel all that pressure on my nervous system. So our environment is so important. So without anyone having to say anything, it adds pressure. So you could have the best strategies in the world. A child in school burnout who's a PDAer coming into school itself is pressure on their nervous system. Also, the sun rising, the sun setting, weather is also external demand. So I talked a little bit yesterday about how I grew up in Saudi Arabia. If you've been to Saudi Arabia or the Middle East, you know that it's sunny every single day. But coming to Ireland, I found it so difficult because the weather changes all the time, and it's so stressful. So, if it's raining, everyone will have pressure to wear a raincoat or, well, I tend to notice Irish people are not prepared, but you can see American tourists walking around Dublin and they are very prepared for the weather. They're in wellies, they're in raincoats, so like you're in the weather. And the sun rising, that's all pressure on your nervous system. So many PDAers, and what I did through burnout is I would stay up all night and then sleep all day because it was pressure when the sun sets that I was meant to go to sleep, and I just couldn't cope with that pressure on my nervous system. So I think this is really important because you could be the most low demand person in the world, or you could be on a deserted island. There's still going to be pressure on your nervous system for PDAers because the sun will rise. You're expected to get up and do something. The sun sets. There's weather changing, so there's always demands and pressure on our nervous system. It can be good, it can be bad. It's just pressure. And also internal demands are really important to understand. So toileting is a big thing for PDAers. Last year I did a talk at the Children's Continence Ireland conference, and it was really interesting. I talked about PDA and toileting because it can be really difficult. So obviously, I think people can understand external demands and pressure a bit more, but they don't maybe realize how much internal demands add pressure to my nervous system. So when you need to go to the toilet, that's obviously a demand to say you need to get up and walk to the toilet. So sometimes when my capacity is reduced, I find that so difficult. So I've had a lifetime of UTIs, and so I can really tell when I'm dysregulated or other children are dysregulated is that they have lots of UTIs or constipation. I can see that's a demand on their nervous system. Also, being hungry and having to eat is a demand on our nervous system. So I get hangry. I'm sure lots of PDAers do as well. as soon as like I kind of tend to ignore the demand of, ooh, I'm a bit hungry, ooh, I'm a bit hungry, and then I'm like, I have to eat right now. And so many PDAers also do that. And so it's because it's a demand on their nervous system. So a lot of children might not eat all day in school because it's too much pressure. And then when they get home, they'll be like, I need food right now. So it's dysregulating them. Also, our regulation needs are a demand. So while you're sitting here in the uncomfortable chairs, you're going to become more and more dysregulated, whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent. And so your nervous system is going to be telling you, you need to get up and move. And if you are not PDA, you might be able to listen to your body and get up and move. If you're a PDAer, you might find it really hard to get up and move, even though you know you need to. So in schools, lots of teachers create lovely programs and strategies. So like, you'd have like a movement break card. So you just have to request a movement break and give a teacher a card. I find that PDAers will never hand in a card or request a movement break. And that's because it's too much pressure on their nervous system. Also, sickness is a demand on their nervous system as well. I think being sick really dysregulates me because it's a loss of autonomy of my body and you can't control it. So you can't get better even if you just decide to get better, So, yeah. And then self-imposed. So I think PDAers tend to be labeled as like manipulative or bold and stuff. And so we tend to get a lot of behavior strategies placed on us. So reward systems and things like that to try to help us. I think people don't realize how much we want to do well and how much we have intrinsic motivation. I think it could be missed because people are just looking at surface level behavior, but PDAers obviously want to do well. And so there can be, I do parent consults, and so many people will say that PDAers are perfectionists. So if they don't know they're going to be good at something, they won't try, which I'm very much like that. I want to be able to, like learning how to ride a bike. I would just expect myself to know how to ride a bike. Or I remember when I was 8, I think, I was learning how to water ski, and it was so hard for me that I couldn't just perfectly get it the first time. So another demand on our nervous system. So how does PDA present? So I think this is really important to reframe looking at behavior and really think about the nervous system. So how I look at the nervous system is through toileting, sleep, feeding, hygiene, safety, and communication. So this is what I keep track of for myself. I think yesterday someone asked me, how do I not get burnt out in work? And that's because I have to keep track of toileting, sleeping, feeding, hygiene, safety, and communication. It doesn't work if I try to monitor myself through emotions. It doesn't work. So I know if I don't sleep well, if I start getting UTIs, or I'm constipated, if I'm not eating or overeating, if I can't shower, if I'm finding it hard to speak out loud, then I know I'm becoming more dysregulated. And because PDAers have highly sensitive nervous systems, this is where you're going to see huge impact. I think an SNA created, I forgot what it's called, but I think it's the diary, total communication diary. And I think that's really helpful for parents. So basically it's a diary that parents would fill out and send into school, and then school also fill out a communication diary, obviously. But the parent would keep track of their sleeping, toileting, and feeding. So the parent might write, oh, my child didn't sleep well last night, or my child hasn't gone to the toilet, or hasn't had breakfast. The teacher could read that and say, okay, I know there's pressure on their nervous system. They're going to need more regulation today. then the teacher would say if they had movement breaks, if they went to the toilet in school, and if they ate in school. So then the parent could see, oh, my child didn't eat lunch, they haven't gone to the toilet all day, you know that they're going to need more support in the evening. So I think creating this kind of connected communication diary, thinking about these areas is so important, and it can really help us understand how to support PDAers better. This is a PDA cycle that I put together. So I was trying to show the bigger picture of school burnout for PDAers. So you can see, it's very fancy to have a laser. So this PDAer can't cope in school. This doesn't mean that you have to be flipping tables or very dysregulated or like outwardly dysregulated. This could be a child who isn't eating in school, who isn't going to the toilet, and then they come home. They're more sensitive to sensory input at home. So they get into their car and their sibling is like, I hate people being too close to me sometimes. So if I got into the car and my sister Alva would like bump into me or touch my shoulder, you would see rage. So they can be more sensitive to sensory input, especially towards siblings. Then they might have a meltdown. And then because of their meltdown, they might have high cortisol, which is your stress hormone. That would impact your sleep. And then the cycle continues over and over again. So this is why if you have the best strategies in school, it does matter. But there is then at home, if you're doing all the amazing strategies in school, at home, if there is no support for regulation and understanding, this cycle will just continue. And if you're doing all the supports at home, but school aren't on board, this cycle will continue over and over. So everyone needs to work together, basically. So again, this is the window. I think my next slide. So I think about the curtains closing. So when there's more demands and pressure building, your curtains start to close, and then you're going to see survival responses, and you're going to see all these areas impacted. I think I love the way I explain this because I think everyone can relate to it. It doesn't matter if you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, everyone has windows and everyone obviously has stress in their life and has to regulate. So I think it's really important because I do this with children in OT sessions, but you could do this as a whole school. You could all make your own windows. You could do this as a whole family and talk about how you're like me and hate the M50 traffic, or long days in work, or you hate laundry or cooking or whatever, and you can label on the window what adds pressure, and then you can talk about as a family what opens up your window, which is the whole next half of my presentation. So what makes this hard is you're like, okay, I understand the window. That's great. I need to understand dysregulation for PDAers, which is really important. But what makes it hard is that neurodivergent PDAers mask. Well, everyone masks, but basically masking is when neurodivergent individuals suppress or change parts of themselves in order to fit into environments that feel unsafe, demanding, or they're being misunderstood. So I would notice so many PDAers when they first meet me will come into sessions and have a baby voice, and their parent might be like, oh, stop talking like that. And that's because there's too much pressure on their nervous system. They're masking. They might use different voices, so it doesn't have to be a baby voice. It could be like a character from a movie. We were talking about Gestalt language processing yesterday, so it could be Bluey or whatever, Dora the Explorer. And I think this can be really well masked, so you have to really know the person to know that, oh, this doesn't feel right for them. They might change accents around different people. They might speak through a character. So I did a GP training a few months ago, and I asked parents to tell me what I should tell the GPs to help them understand. And so many parents wrote in about their PDAers being like Superman or a character going into the GP, and how when the GPs just went along with the character, it really supported their nervous system through that. So math can kind of be like obvious, but also not that obvious. I think there's so much pressure to unmask. I think there's lots of lovely books about unmasking, and I hear from teachers that lots of parents or schools are trying to support neurodivergent people to unmask. I think I understand why people want children to unmask or teenagers, and it's because you just want them to be their authentic self and be proud of themselves. But I think it's really important to understand why people mask in the first place. So it's because they don't feel safe in their environment. So many people mask to protect themselves. I obviously mask a lot. So when I think about when I unmask, you can see my executive functioning differences show, because I'm an ADHDer and I only got identified this year. So I masked it very well. But when I unmask, you can see my executive functioning differences show. So I might try to like eat the same thing every day or wear the same clothes. And so when people start to notice that and I unmask, I get more pressure as a PDAer. So it's like, ooh, you should, my mom hates that I want to eat the same thing every day. So she'll be like, ooh, you should try a curry or something, you know, or you get pressured to be reminded, you know, so like you to, I don't know, check your emails and do all these things and get your books. So like in school, if you forget your books, it's like, why did you forget these things? You need to do all these things. I think when we unmask as well, our sensory differences show a lot more. So you might be more sensitive to noise. So then it's like, ooh, put your ear defenders on, or ooh, you should do this, you know, that. And so that can get really overwhelming and dysregulating. And then my social differences tend to show when I unmask as well. So I have always preferred to have small groups of friends, but I see that lots of goals and stuff are about expanding friendships for neurodivergent individuals, or they're like, you can't just have one friend, you know. But when you lean into that safety of having one friend, then people are trying to bring in all these social programs and stuff to try to get you to expand. So So how do you identify masking? I think we tend to identify adults masking a bit easier, or their dysregulation a bit easier. So what I've tried to do is take all these lovely videos and show dysregulation. So if you think about if you saw your friend who was shaking their leg or stretching their fingers, biting their fingernails, or grinding their teeth, or like rubbing their temples, you would be able to be like, ooh, something's up. I need to support them or check in with them. So I think we can identify adults dysregulated, but for children, it can often be missed, because I think sometimes children show their dysregulation in other ways. So they might get up and leave their seat repeatedly. They might call out or interrupt in class. They might not be able to do work. They might get tearful or angry. They might climb, hide, or run away, or they might appear distracted. So it's really important to kind of understand that dysregulation shows up in all different ways, and that's unique to everyone. This is photos of me masking. So I think it's very interesting to look at my photos when I was younger and compare them. So on the left is me masking. On the left, sorry, is me not masking, and on the right is me masking. So I don't know if you've heard of Kim Bartel. She's an occupational therapist from Canada. I did her course a few years ago by hand-in-hand therapy, and it was like in person in Ireland, and it honestly was amazing. She works with, I'm not going to be able to say it, Inuit the Inuit community in Canada, and it's just really interesting to hear her understanding of the nervous system. And she talked a lot about how our body shows dysregulation. So I'd recommend you looking her up. Her name's Kim Bartel. But I can see on the left side that I'm not masking, so my shoulders are much more relaxed. My jaw is very relaxed. I'm not making eye contact. Compared to this side, I'm very dysregulated. So I was always told that I was like the shy, quiet, compliant child. But I can see that I'm very dysregulated here. So here I was 8 years old. I had to stand up in front of my class and talk about myself, which is my worst nightmare, ironically, as I do this presentation. But I found it so dysregulating. It was like in alphabetical order. So I obviously figured out what time of year, it was like once a week. And so I obviously figured out the exact week in the year that I'd have to go. And I was stressed about it all year. So this is me really dysregulated. I picked out this orange dress because you could tie the waist. So I could tie it as tight as possible to get deep pressure in my stomach. I used to wear my hair as tight as possible in school because I was trying to get deep pressure in my head. And I have my hands behind my back and I'm pushing down. I think that's why I'm a bit dysregulated doing this talk, because I can't do it at the moment and I can't regulate as much. But basically, usually in talks, I put my hands behind my back and push down to get deep pressure in my shoulders, which I find really regulating. This picture on the far right is me, I think I was 2, and you can see that even though I'm smiling, I have a very tense jaw. I have my hands in fists and my chin forward, and I'm in a protective response. Sorry, I forgot this. So if you get into this position yourself, you can immediately feel your nervous system responding. This is a protective response. So even though I'm smiling and making eye contact, I'm very dysregulated because obviously my dad is interrupting my drawing. Here at the bottom, this is me at my sister Alva's, I forgot what, christening. And obviously we had loads of family there. I think I was like 2.5 there. I'm very dysregulated because I'm like, what are all these people doing in my house? And obviously Alva is crying. And so I have a really tight jaw. I'm looking sideways. So I always get told that I roll my eyes all the time. I think I just did it. But I'm actually trying to regulate myself. When you look sideways or you look up, you're getting deep pressure in your eyes. So I'm constantly trying to regulate. So I wanted to show this because it's really important to think about the individual person that you're supporting or your children, because they will mask and show their dysregulation differently. It's not going to be like explosive and stuff all the time. So masking does come at a cost. So when you mask all day, when your child comes home from school and they're masking all day, you can literally feel the exhaustion and dysregulation radiating from them. And this is why you see children in burnout cycles, shutdown and survival responses, because masking leads to a collapse of your nervous system. So instead of our goal being we need to support the child to unmask, I would think about how can we change the environment and our systems to make it safe enough so that they naturally unmask. So that's what we need to let go. Oh, I don't have that much time. Sorry, it's very warm up here. I'm trying to regulate. So a big thing about PDAers is equalizing behavior. And I think this is like a light bulb moment for lots of people when they understand PDA. I'm going to show a clip from The Grinch, but not yet, so I'd say. But I think The Grinch is like the perfect example of PDA and equalizing behavior. So you should all go home and watch it tonight. But The Grinch, you can see, so he obviously had a difficult time at Christmas when he was younger. So his window is starting to close coming into Christmas. And so he's becoming more and more dysregulated. What he did was he went down into Whoville and he stole all the presents for Christmas from the Whoville people, whatever they're called. And so he was dysregulated and he didn't know how to regulate himself through the stressful time at Christmas. So what he did was he dysregulated Whoville by stealing their presents. So they were dysregulated. He was dysregulated. And then Whoville come together and they're like, Christmas isn't about presents and all this stuff. And so what they're doing is they're modeling regulation. So through that, they're all modeling regulation, which then regulates the Grinch. So that's basically a very quick summary of what equalizing behavior is. And it's something that's like not conscious. Like the Grinch didn't identify that Christmas is hard, I'm going to steal their presents to regulate my nervous system. As a 32-year-old person, I still, even though I know all about regulation and equalizing behavior and why I do it, in the moment, I still can't identify that I'm equalizing, or Paul, my fiance, has learned too much about equalizing behavior. And so he'll be like, you're equalizing. And I'll be like, no, I'm not. So don't say that to PDAers when they're equalizing. You just have to co-regulate together. But yeah, so I think the Grinch really encompasses what equalizing behavior is. Basically, what I do is when there's too much pressure on my nervous system, I don't have capacity to self-regulate. So what my nervous system does is I trigger my safe people. So I'll trigger Paul or my sister Alva. They're very predictable how they regulate, so I know exactly how to piss them off. And so I'll do that. They become dysregulated, and then they regulate their own nervous system, which co-regulates mine. This is a very genuine way to regulate. I think you as parents and teachers will be able to identify PDAers being dysregulated, and you're like, okay, cool. What you need to do is go on a movement break or hug a hug-a-lumps. And if you say that to a PDAer, they won't do it. And so what works better is that if you're actually genuinely regulating your own nervous system. So when you see a child in distress or they're dysregulated, what you want to do is pick up the hug-a-lumps and model regulation alongside it. But PDAers will force you to be genuine. And so that's what they're doing. So this clip, it's so hard being a Gestalt language processor and not explaining the entire movie, but I'm fighting the urge. But basically, Cindy Lou is part of the Grinch, obviously, and she's the perfect example of unconditional positive regard. So no matter what the Grinch says to her, no matter what happens, she comes back and meets him where he is. And yeah, now I'm going to get emotional thinking about the Grinch. So I'm just going to stop. This, I think, is the nicest clip ever. So you can play it now.
Right. Okay. This is a bad idea. I can't do this. I can't do this. They're all gonna hate me. All right. I did it.
Oh, Mr. Grinch, I'm so happy you decided to come. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. I wore a tie.
And it's a very nice tie. Cindy Lou, look who came.
Mr. Grinch, you're here.
Hello.
Come on in. I'll show you around.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Mr. Grinch. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, too.
Aunt Ida, I'd like you to meet my friend, the Grinch.
Oh, it's nice to meet you, Mr. Grinch.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Oh, here, let me take that for you.
Oh, thank you. Cindy Lou, could you make a little room for this?
Oh, don't worry. I've got it.
Huh. Isn't that thoughtful?
Well, is that grouchy, grumpy Grinchy I see standing over there?
Ricklebaum, good to see you.
Come on, Grinchy, give me a hug.
Oh.
It don't count if you don't hug back, buddy.
Okay, come take your seats, everyone. Dinner's ready.
Come on, you're sitting next to me. Here you go.
No. This is my first Christmas dinner. What happens?
You'll see.
Would you do the honors, Mr. Grinch?
Oh, okay. Do you mind if I say something first?
Not at all.
Well, everybody, I just want to say I've spent my entire life hating Christmas and everything about it. But now I see that it wasn't Christmas I hated. It was being alone. But I'm not alone anymore. And I have all of you to thank for it. But especially this little girl right here. Ma'am, your daughter's kindness changed my life.
That's my girl.
Oh, that was beautiful. That's my best friend.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Grinch.
Merry Christmas, Cindy Lou.
And the Grinch raised his glass and led the Who's in a toast.
To kindness and love, the things we need most.
I've just realized I'm such a good start language processor that I have to communicate what I mean through video clips. I don't know if you were at my talk yesterday, but I was talking about how everyone needs to go watch the movie I Swear, because it's like it encompasses what I'm trying to communicate to everyone. So it's funny. Anyways, I think there's so many things to analyze by just this short clip. I think for the Gestalt language processing talk by Jessica, she was talking about declarative language. You can see as soon as the Grinch came in, everyone met him with declarative language. So they were saying statements like, it's nice to meet you, or you came, or whatever they were saying. And then his first thing was, I'm wearing a tie. So that's a statement to create safety and predictability. So many PDAers do that. I also think it's really funny to see the very first clip, because obviously it's a demand and pressure to ring the doorbell, even though he wants to go to the dinner. It's dysregulating him. So he uses his dog to co-regulate. So yeah, I'm not going to keep going about the Grinch, but it's really good. I'm keeping an eye on time, and I want to have enough time for questions, because I think that's the most important part. So I'm going to skip through some slides and talk about the actual strategies of what you can do. So I'm just going to skip through them. How do I hit next? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to, because our afternoon talks are all about strategies like this, so that'll be further explained. So when we think about our nervous system, I think people get really stressed about how to support regulation and do the right thing. I just think you need to listen to your own nervous system and think about your natural instincts. So I have videos up of mothers with babies. And so when you're around a dysregulated crying child, our natural instinct is to pick them up and rock them. That's vestibular input. So if anyone's crossing their legs and shaking it, you're getting vestibular input. Or if you're watching me talk, I'm moving a lot to try to get vestibular input. And then the mom, I want to just show. So this mom on the left side, I don't know my directions at the moment, she's leaning in and putting her cheek against her baby to give deep pressure into his or her jaw to regulate. So I think we all naturally know how to co-regulate someone, and so you just have to lean into that. So what tends to happen, and I think it was a question yesterday I answered, was a parent has 4 autistic children and she's trying to co-regulate everyone. So I think lots of parents lean into this type of support for regulation. They use their own bodies to regulate their children. What makes that hard is in school, obviously, you can't provide the same co-regulation by hugging students and rocking them. It's just not, well, so that just doesn't happen in school. So children are so used to co-regulating and regulating their nervous system by parents picking them up and rocking them. And so then when they're in the school setting, they don't know how to regulate their nervous system. At home, that's become difficult, obviously, because you can't use your body to regulate your children all the time. And it can also be a bit dangerous. So as children get bigger, they need more sensory input to regulate themselves. So they're going to use more deep pressure. And so that's where you can get injured because your body can only give so much regulation. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that and then think about, okay, how can I create opportunities in the environment to regulate in other ways? Sorry. I also think about regulation while everyone's watching a movie or listening to this presentation. You're drinking coffee, you might be chewing gum. So as you're sitting there in those uncomfortable seats getting more and more dysregulated, you're going to do things to try to regulate your nervous system naturally. So when people are watching movies, so often they pause it halfway, which enrages me because I don't like pausing movies. But you might pause it halfway to get up and have a snack or get a drink, and that's because that's regulating you to be able to sit and watch the movie. I think Irish people, so often, if you go into someone's house, it's obviously dysregulating for everyone. So they'll be like, do you want a cup of tea? And tea helps regulate your nervous system. And that's like for everything in Ireland. If something, I'm obviously half American if you didn't know, so, but I think anything goes wrong in Ireland, you're offered a cup of tea. And so that's because it's regulating your nervous system. So I think you want to try to let go of all the complicatedness of regulation and just think about how do I regulate my nervous system, and that'll help you understand how to support children. So with that, so when you pick up the baby and you're rocking them, rocking is vestibular input. Rubbing them on the back or patting their back is, I did that opposite, is deep pressure. So what is deep pressure? So basically, it's just something that you're using your muscles for. So I was so lucky, Cogs and Toys, I think they're called, gave me a jellyfish knead dough. Best day ever. But knead dough is really nice because it's really resistant. It's giving me deep pressure in my hands. So many people yesterday asked to try out my knead dough. But CJ has so many, a table of all different fidgets and stuff. So anything that you're using your muscles for is deep pressure. This is obviously the Huggalumps. You should all try it if you want. But the Huggalumps is amazing. So one, they're priced really, well, kind of affordably. They range from €12 to €20. You can get them in TK Maxx. You can get them in Smith's. You can get them in Aldi sometimes. But I think they're the perfect thing in the world. So I'm going to explain why in case any companies are listening to me and they can create their own. So the Huggalumps is perfect because it is like a squishmallow. So I know lots of children love squishmallows. That's because it's dynamic deep pressure. So if I'm seeking lots of deep pressure, I can squeeze it really hard and it's giving me lots of deep pressure back. If I just want light deep pressure, I hold it loosely, it's giving me light deep pressure back. So this is dynamic deep pressure. So many times when people hear about proprioceptive input, they think about weighted blankets. I find that most children don't like weighted blankets. That's because I think their bodies aren't as big as adults. So basically, when you're under a weighted blanket, you need to be strong enough to move around under the blanket to get dynamic deep pressure. Children aren't as strong, so they're just laying there and it's just constant deep pressure on top of them. So weighted blankets are very expensive. What I find is most parents end up using them themselves. So what I would think about is dynamic deep pressure, because obviously when they're hugging you, they can squeeze you really tight, or obviously not hug you as hard, and it's dynamic. So this, because it's like a squishmallow, this is why it's perfect. It's also weighted. You should never, for children, you do 10% of their body weight, and they need to be able to pull it off themselves for safety. The hug lumps are also so cute as well. So I think they help with like inclusivity. So many schools have messaged me. They've got hug lumps for every class, and they're amazing. So this is the hug lumps. You can also have a lycra tunnel. So that's this blue, yellow, and red thing. I think lycra tunnels are a bit handier than body socks. So lots of people have body socks, but what happens is it's like a sleeping bag. So you're kind of like trapped in it. Whereas a lycra tunnel is a bit handier because you could have your feet out and run around, so you're not as trapped. But lycra is amazing because when you push against lycra, you're getting that dynamic deep pressure. And then the purple thing is Elephant Living's Mellow Bean Bag. We have one out there. You should also, if you want, go sit in it. I think it's the perfect beanbag ever, because when you sit in it, you sink into it and it gives you deep pressure all over your body. You'll know what I mean if you go try it out if you want. But yeah, so this is a mellow beanbag. In Saplings, they got one for like every single class because they're amazing. I know beanbags are expensive. What some people do is just get an old duvet cover and stuff it with pillows from around the house, and you can create your own one or put loads of teddies and stuff. Vestibular input is that rocking. So when I do school visits, I notice that so many students are stealing the teacher's desk chair. That's because you can spin, so that's vestibular input. That's why if we were in like rocking chairs or desk chairs, you would be a lot more regulated and comfortable. But yeah, so I would recommend like a rocking chair at home, or scooters can be really great, or swings. And then cause and effect. So I love physics because it's very practical. When you do something predictable always happens. So I think lots of people feel safe out in nature. And that's because nature provides natural cause and effect. So if you watch the running water, that's cause and effect crashing. I know I did a TUSA training and someone said that their child stayed in the bath all the time and they couldn't transition out of the bath. That's because water is giving you cause and effect. If you go look at the trees and leaves falling, that's cause and effect. But obviously, well, you could always be in nature, but maybe you're not. So you want to try to create cause and effect options outside, or not inside. You know what I mean? So this is cause and effect. So, oh God, I don't know if the camera, I don't know. So this is cause and effect. So when you notice a child or a PDA is becoming more dysregulated, one of the things you can model is cause and effect over and over again, because this is predictable and safe. So you can get loads of these kind of like things that are very fun. Bubbles, I think, is the best thing ever to always have on the go, because obviously when you blow bubbles, you're getting deep pressure in your jaw. And then obviously when bubbles pop, it's cause and effect. It's very predictable. This, that's okay. Hopefully you can see. So this is a Montessori switchboard. It's on Amazon. This is battery powered, so you could bring it anywhere you want. But this is really regulating. I honestly love it myself. So when you switch the switches, the lights come on, and then when you turn it off, they obviously turn off. So when I first meet children, so many times I'll come into the room and turn the lights on and off, on and off, on and off all the time. And I get migraine, so I don't like that. So what I found is I've Velcroed one of these things up in the room so children can get their cause and effect predictability. Is the light keeps changing? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is, oh, This is also cause and effect, so ball runs. So I think if you look up, if you're a teacher and you're going to have an autism class, or you're just trying to design sensory spaces, creating like something like this ball run is really great. If you look up like Montessori toys, there's lots of examples. Yeah, okay, very fun. So bringing it all together, so this is a sensory space I designed. So I was thinking about deep pressure options, vestibular options, and cause and effect. So I built a rock climbing wall with my dad. There's a trampoline there, obviously bean bags. So all of this is providing deep pressure. We put up swings, so that's vestibular input. You can see in the back is a ball pit. So ball pits are great cause and effect because obviously you can throw a ball and it's predictable where it goes if you have good aim. This is the Neurodiversity Ireland Sensory Centre. So I designed this room thinking about the same thing. So deep pressure, vestibular input, and cause and effect. So I have, well, you can't, it skipped past. So there's an ambulance toy. No, sorry. There's an ambulance toy in there. That's cause and effect because the lights come on. I have swing options. I have this T-swing. If you're an OT or an FLT, you need a T-swing in your life. They're the best things ever. You can't see it anymore, but you sit on it and you can hug it and you get deep pressure and then you can swing. It's amazing. If you come to the sensory center, you can try it out if you want. But yeah. So now I want to highlight a few schools. So St. David's National School in Dublin, they have two SNAs, Louise and Susan, and they designed this cause and effect wall. I think it's the most amazing thing ever. They also posted on their Instagram this cozy corner, I think they called it. So I can see that the sequins on the left, that's cause and effect. They have a swing there for vestibular input. It's a lycra swing. So the stretchy material is going to give dynamic deep pressure. They have like bands on the wall, which is giving them deep pressure. Bubble tubes are cause and effect. So obviously you can see the bubbles moving up and down. So they've done this as well. It's just thinking about deep pressure, vestibular input, and cause and effect. So because I'm American, I'm not going to attempt to say this Wales school's name, but you can read it. This is their Instagram. They've recently posted their amazing autism class that they've designed. I just think it's beautiful. They have a sensory room off the autism class, but they're it's just beautiful. So they have desks on the left, but they have they said that they wanted to make sure that they had lots of room for regulation. So kids can get up and move around while they're learning. And there's just so many different options. You can see at the back there, that's a wobble stool, so for alternative seating. So if you are opening up an autism class, you should go look at this school because it's amazing. And then I just turned the noise off. Sorry. This is St. Mary's Junior School in Blessington, where I'm from, and they posted this amazing sensory room. This was created by Andrea, Lisa, Debbie, Luke, Jenny, Jennifer, Sophie, Bernie, Louise, and Stephen the caretaker. And I just think this is so amazing. They've obviously done the same thing, thinking about deep pressure, vestibular input, and cause and effect. So I just think this is lovely. This is within their school, and children can come here to regulate their nervous systems. So there's lots of ideas of what you can do online. So I think it is important to think about that, like most people, especially in Ireland, there's a housing crisis. You're not going to have a room to just create a sensory room, most likely. So it can be really hard because it's like, oh, these spaces look beautiful, or you might not have room in your school. But I would just think about, okay, deep pressure, vestibular input, and cause and effect, and how can I adapt that to wherever I am? So if you're looking at your living room, you could have a rocking chair instead of just the couch. You could have bubbles or like hug-a-lumps on the couch as well. So there's obviously lots of small things that you can do in any environment to make it more regulating. So now I'm almost gone over time. There's a timer that's come up. But now it's time for questions.
Excellent, Sorka. Thank you. The only change that I would make to that beautiful Gael skull would be to remove the teach desks so that the kids aren't facing the wall, that they would be facing each other or working together on a mat on a floor or something. First question for Sorka. Yesterday you mentioned the screens are regulating. Could you perhaps talk about your approach or advice for advising or guiding children on managing using screens for regulation, knowing the negative effects too much screen time can have?
Okay, so I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's a bit ironic because they're using screens to communicate their question. So basically, I think okay, so when I'm becoming more dysregulated, what I talked about was like equalizing behavior. So I need someone else to co-regulate me, to regulate my nervous system. For so many people, screens are that co-regulation. So if you were a bit dysregulated coming in, if you came in here alone, you might have been scrolling on your phone to try to regulate yourself. If you go into any doctor's office, everyone, or like I took the DART, everyone was sitting there on their phone trying to regulate through the transition. Screens are safe and predictable, so especially for Gestalt language processors, if everything feels unpredictable, if you're able to watch a clip that gives you safety and predictability, that's going to regulate your nervous system. What I always think about is if your capacity is reducing and you don't have the energy to get up and go for a walk or go to your GAA team or something, you're going to look for other ways that is less energy to regulate your nervous system, which is screens. So children in burnout are going to want to be on their screens 24/7 to try to regulate their nervous system. If you limit screens in that moment, you're taking away their safety and predictability and their way to regulate. So you're going to see survival responses. So then it's going to look like screens are dangerous. What I would do is think about, okay, my child is on their screens 24/7 all weekend. I need to look at what's adding pressure to their nervous system. How can I reduce that? And how can I support regulation? So if they're just on a chair playing video games, I would look at doing like the rocker gaming chairs or a desk chair instead of a normal chair, so you're adding in regulation to what they're already doing. Did I answer that? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sorka. I think for parents also to, that very set idea that negative, the negative impact of screen time, that we should remove that from ourselves as parents because we're dealing with something entirely different, that give yourself the permission to
And I think that so many neurodivergent children, or at least I find it hard to start conversations or know what to talk about. And I think if you go and chat to anyone, everyone's like, oh, did you watch that documentary on Netflix? Because it's a starting point to connect with people. So I know loads of teenagers will want to, might go into school and be able to be like, oh, I played this video game or I watched this TV show, and it's a way to connect with their peers. So it also supports social communication as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and having a kid who has been on her screen for as many hours of the day as she's awake for the last 6 months or longer, the screen is also a way to read and write, to talk to other people. There's loads of things happening on that screen, like there's art, there's entertainment, so
communication. AHC devices.
I would just give yourself grace.
There is play-spark.com is an amazing website. This is all my clothes are from play-spark.com, but they have free handouts on their website, and there is one about screens. So if I don't know, your sister or grandparents are like, they can't be on screens all the time. That is a nice way to communicate. Stop telling you what to do.
Yes, you can download it for free. And one thing that I told the grandparents was just pretend it's a book. Nobody's got such prejudices about books. So, next question: how can we best support our young adults who are autistic, ADHD, PDA, and help them to become more independent, autonomous, and to participate in work, college, or socially, whilst also supporting their nervous system?
Yeah, so when you're seeing teenagers have difficulty with independence and everything you basically said, that is looking at the pyramid of learning. And so they don't have capacity for those things because they're dysregulated. So everything comes back to the nervous system. So what I would do is focus on regulation first, and then all those things naturally work.
Do you in terms of independence, is that the goal, or are we? I think I've certainly felt there's been a lot of pressure to make kids independent when they're not capable of being independent in certain fields. Like, for example, I spoon feed my 7 and 8-year-old because, yeah, they can put the spoon to their mouth and eat, but most of the time they can't because of the other pressures on their nervous system. I think probably there's a lot of pressure on parents to obtain independence, obtain toilet train kids at the age of 2, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think it's not really so PDAers have such highly sensitive nervous systems, so everything is adding pressure. So we constantly have to regulate our nervous systems. I still depend on my sister to ring my GP for me. And, I find it so much easier to go with Paul somewhere or with Alva because they're co-regulating me. So it just gives me the ability to be able to go do things because I know I'm going to find it too hard. So do you know what I mean? So yeah.
I mean, you're independent, but it looks different. Can I have your sister, please? Is it possible that there are different levels of PDA? Apologies, not sure of the language. Some PDA's nervous systems are more sensitive than others, and some PDA's window of capacity are more limited to expanding.
So I think that's fluctuating capacity. The more pressure on their nervous system, the more you're going to see survival responses. So maybe when I was in school burnout, I had no capacity for anything. So I might have looked like I had more support needs compared to I feel like I have, but yeah, it's just your fluctuating capacity. So I don't believe that you should organize autistic people into levels, and I don't believe you should organize PDA into areas as well. I don't believe in externalized PDA versus internalized PDA. I think that it just depends on your environment. So externalized PDAers feel safe to kind of express themselves, whereas if you're internalizing your PDA, you might be skin picking or controlling your food, but it doesn't make it any less. It's all the same highly sensitive nervous system. It's just how you show it.
How can we support our PDA students when they appear overwhelmed or dysregulated without creating more demands? For example, offering ear defenders.
So that's modeling regulation. So that's going back to being genuinely regulating your own nervous system. So I think so many people are taught you have to stay calm when someone becomes dysregulated, and that enrages me because it doesn't make sense. Because PDAers, when they're dysregulated, no matter who you are, you feel it. So you're also becoming dysregulated. If you try to stay calm in the moment, you're not being genuine because the PDAer can tell that you're dysregulated, but you're trying to hide it. So what's better is if you actually model your own regulation genuinely. So if you're a teacher, you could have Nijo on your desk, you can talk, or you could have the Huggalumps and you could start to use it. What I tend to do is I'll use it myself and model it, and then I leave it and like walk away. So there's no pressure. I don't care if you, well, I want you to try the Huggalumps, but there is pressure. But normally, I wouldn't have pressure for you to use it, because I'd just be like, you can if you want, you know? So you have to completely let go of that pressure, which is so hard, because you're like, I can see you're dysregulated. I know you're going to love the Huggalumps, but I can't tell you to do it. So it's just modeling it and being genuine.
And maybe on that one, if there were options available in the classroom already, that would, so
it has to be part of the environment.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's what can be hard, is how we design schools and our home. Is you might be like, oh yes, there's, I don't know, if you go up to your playroom, I know you can regulate, or, you know, get to the sensory room, like the places that I showed, then you can regulate there. That's so hard, because transitioning is a demand. So you're going to add more dysregulation by trying to support them to transition. And then it can be really hard for you. So what I'd recommend is looking around your house or around your school and thinking, oh yeah, in this classroom, the deep pressure is that comfy chair compared to that hard, horrible chair. Or, you know, like, so you just want to look at your environment, because we have those regulation options already. We just maybe don't realize. And then when you panic and you're dysregulated, it's a lot harder, obviously, to figure out what to do.
My son is recently diagnosed autistic. I'm educating myself. I would assume a PDA profile. Who diagnoses this, or how do you get other professionals to recognise this for therapies or for school? I mean, so how do you get other people to recognise PDA?
So, it's a complicated question. So PDA isn't in the DSM-5. There isn't a diagnostic identification, like a list of things. We are creating one. So that can make it hard for some professionals to feel confident talking about PDA. I would always go back to oppositional defiance disorder is in the DSM-5, and that ODD is looking at surface level behavior, but it's very similar to what PDA is. I would say like ODD is someone in crisis. But so basically PDA is a highly sensitive nervous system. So I believe the occupational therapist should be leading the way for PDA, because it's our job to understand the nervous system. I think I would be very careful about who you go to at the moment to get a PDA identification, because there is no list. So I wouldn't want someone to go to a place and be told it's not PDA, but it is. Do you know what I mean? So what I think would be better is finding an occupational therapist like me or Grania, and meeting them and really understanding the nervous system, because it doesn't, like, obviously it matters if you identify as PDA, but the supports are understanding the nervous system and regulation. And so that's what I would focus on in the moment, is going to an occupational therapist. So you could go to your CDNT, primary care, and say, I really need support understanding the nervous system and how to support regulation for my child. That's what I would do.
You can bring it to them as well too. So a child finds it easy to go on car journeys, public transport, or have new experiences when they have access to a device with their favourite songs and cartoons. The device gives them autonomy as to what clips or cartoons they'll look at, or what songs they'll listen to or replay again and again. Is this a healthy strategy to help the child or not?
Yeah, so basically what's happening is transitioning and going somewhere new is adding pressure to their nervous system. So what they're doing is regulating and opening up their window against that pressure. So they're using screens to regulate. So many people, if you go on the Dart or the Lewis, will be wearing headphones and listening to music. It's the same idea. It's creating safety, predictability, and regulating. So it's helpful. I just wouldn't limit it.
A question on equalizing. My daughter equalizes with me by trying to control what I do. I understand she's feeling unsafe and looking for predictability, but is she also trying to dysregulate me so that I will regulate my nervous system, and so she will feel regulated? Controlling what I do.
Yeah, so growing up, maybe still, when I used to play with my sister Alva, I would tell her exactly what she was allowed to say. Obviously, my gestalt, it'd have to be the exact intonation, and she wasn't allowed change a single word. I also obviously controlled our play as well, so I'd say like how she was allowed hold a toy, which toy she held, so I sound very controlling, but this gave me safety and predictability and was so regulating for my nervous system. It allowed me to have the capacity to then go into school where I couldn't control, like I couldn't create that safety and predictability other places. And it allowed me to like engage and learn. So what I see, so my mom is very predictable. My mom ties her hair up. She wears pretty much the same like idea of clothes every day. So actually my whole family kind of do. So they're very safe and predictable. I always wear the same thing as well. But I would see some children tell a parent what to wear, how to tie their hair up, usually a mom, but it could be a dad as well, how to tie their hair up, what to wear, where to sit. And in those moments, I think, ooh, they're trying to create safety and predictability in a very unpredictable environment. So usually it might be in a session. So I might think about, ooh, how can I create safety and predictability in the environment and support regulation? But yeah, so I would look at that as equalizing as well. I think it's hard. I would just take that as like understanding, okay, I need to look at the bigger picture and understand where the pressure is coming from and support regulation.
It's not an attempt to annoy or frustrate the mom. Usually it's the mom who's, you can't put your hair up in a
And
ponytail.
it's all like, it's really important to understand equalizing behavior is subconscious. So I don't intentionally do it. Like I can't be like, oh, I've had a hard day, let me go piss off people. Don't make it conscious. It's all subconscious.
I've noticed my child will co-regulate with me when they notice I'm dysregulated. I worry that this is harmful for their emotional development if they feel they need to help me. Given what was said today about co-regulation, can them picking up on my needs ever be a positive thing?
Oh my God, it's gonna make me sad or make me cry. I think it's so important that we stop working against our nervous systems and just be our authentic selves. So, like me crying yesterday in the talk, I shouldn't have apologized. I should have just embraced myself, I think it's really important that we show our dysregulation because what we're doing is modeling how to regulate through that. So if you're a parent, you're obviously going to go through difficult times. If your child is in burnout, your nervous system is going to be impacted. It is so powerful for children to be able to see you become dysregulated and you're modeling how to go through that. So it's not a bad thing. Loads of people like, so I, the way I said PDAers are often perfectionists, so we don't want to try something unless we're perfect at it. I always think about how you don't often see adults learn something new and you don't see them struggle through that. So maybe learning how to ride a bike, they have never seen their parents learn something new and struggle and regulate through that frustration. So that can be really hard. So the child doesn't know how to do that, so they won't attempt new things. So I've said to families that you should all learn something new together so they can see you struggle and regulate through your frustrations.
I think like rage and repair is really healthy rather than, I'm sure lots of people have had mums in particular who would give you the silent treatment or slam doors or whatever. Like that's not a healthy way to model. Do you find that using cause and effect can also cause dysregulation for some children?
So I think creating cause and effect is creating safety. So going back to masking, you mask when you don't feel safe in the environment. So when you create safety, you're going to see someone naturally unmask. So you're going to see a release of all this dysregulation. So like I often hear where some people can they'll say like, oh, I brought them to the sensory room or whatever, but they get so dysregulated by a swing or something like that. I think it'd be very rare to find regulating things so dysregulating. What I actually think is happening is they're holding it all together. They finally feel safe and they have an opportunity to regulate. And so you're seeing all that come out. So I forgot what the question was, but yeah, so I think that often happens. So it's just cause and effect, I don't think would cause dysregulation, but everyone's unique, so it could possibly.
Like you're seeing unmasking nearly, you're
Yeah.
seeing kind of like the expression of the need to
Yeah.
regulate probably. Sorry, can I ask for suggestions of how to co-regulate with a child who goes into a corner and shuts down and doesn't like touch or any kind of verbal communication? And a PDA, also PDA, won't engage in any suggested sensory techniques.
Yeah.
Don't suggest them.
So I think, so I hate when people, if you hug me, it's okay today, I'll be prepared, but I don't like people bumping into me, or I would, do you know when I'm dysregulated, if someone tries to hug me to comfort me, oh my God, it would just be the worst thing in the world. So it's kind of strange for me that people think about using their bodies to regulate other people, because I would never want that for myself. So I don't do that in sessions. What I would do is, if someone's trying to create a safe place by going off into the corner, what I would do is start to model regulation myself. I most likely would do cause and effect over and over and over again, and try to model regulation. I think when children then feel safe, they can move closer to you or start to use that. So, yeah.
And I just told CJ this morning when the IT wasn't working to just stop stressing, and laughed, obviously, because I can't just tell them to stop stressing, you know.
I think so. So someone asked, in case you're online, would I go near them? So I think that's why Kim Bartel's course really helped me, is like really understanding visually what to look for dysregulation. So it's obviously different for other people. So what I'm looking for is someone getting into a protective response. So some people obviously want safety and want you to be closer, but what I'd be really looking for is that dysregulation building. So if I move closer and they're getting into a protective response, I obviously know I'm dysregulating them, so I'd move away. So it just really depends on the person. Like the person who's dysregulated, it also depends on who you are. So if you're a parent, it's obviously very different than an OT or a teacher coming close, because obviously it's different. Yeah.
The young person gets very dysregulated when asked to go to the toilet, their PDA. I have asked staff not to offer the toilet, as she needs to go, she will go, she will not have an accident. At times she is holding, which I know is giving her regulation, as she finds it funny and gives her a lot of cause and effect. The hard part is that she's getting a lot of UTIs. How can I best support her?
So so many questions, or so many things to say. So holding is a way to get deep pressure inside your body. It's obviously not a safe thing to do for your body, because it leads to UTIs all the time. So basically my life story. But so basically what I think about is, I wouldn't, like if someone told me to go to the toilet, I would not go to the toilet ever. What helps is, what I would think about is, when are they most regulated? So when is their window most open? So that might be after yard time in school, after like a regulation break or whatever, or after they're doing something they love. They're most regulated, so they have the best interoception at that time. They are connected with their bodies. They are more likely then to be able to tell, I need to go to the toilet. Then what I would think about is transition. So it is really hard. If anyone here needs to go to the toilet, now everyone's going to feel like they need to go to the toilet. But it's really hard to sit there and think about, you have to get up from your chair, walk across there, go into the toilet. There's a million stalls in there, so there's so much executive functioning and transitions. So that's hard. Whereas when you're on a moving break, which is very soon, and you're all going to be out there, you're closer to the toilet, so there's less pressure, and then you're naturally going to see other people going to the toilet, so then that'll help you think, oh, maybe I should go. And so it's a natural progression. So basically, if I was in a school, I would want to think about when they're most regulated, so probably after yard time. Hopefully you would transition near, like past the toilet. So as you're walking by, students might naturally go in, and that would help a PDA or think about if they need to go to the toilet, if they go. So if you're out in public, I find it so hard to go to new toilets and stuff. So Paul will often be like, oh, I need to go to the toilet. And then he'll go and he's modeling it. And so then I go. So yeah, there is something I think I would talk to school, because like if someone told me to go to the toilet, I wouldn't be able to push past that demand. So prompting is really difficult. So it's just kind of like naturally modeling it through a transition.
Not restricting it, because I do hear of some schools restricting toilet access, but just to have it accessible.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot in secondary schools. So in secondary schools, we don't have the proper regulation spaces. So lots of people use toilets as a safe place to regulate. So I would see lots of secondary school students who might go to the toilet a million times a day because they're trying to regulate their nervous system and create safety. What then happens is people try to restrict going to the toilet, or you have to like ask permission, or like, I don't know, in my school, in America, my second school after burnout, you didn't have to ask, you could just like get up and go. So it's obviously different in Ireland for schools. But yeah, so instead I wouldn't limit toileting. I would just, if it was a teenager or a child, just be like, okay, they're trying to create safety, go into the toilet so often. How can we adapt the environment and make it more safe in the classroom?
We have so many questions. We're not going to be able to answer them all. I am going to commit that we will reply to them online, but I will just do a couple more, conscious that we are getting a shorter break then. Do you have any insights into breaking the cycle of equalising between siblings? I have a 6-year-old PDA and twin 3-year-olds. The equalising from my son is intense. He'll scribble on their drawings, call them names, physically bump into them all within the space of 5 minutes. I tend to get very cross, which doesn't help things. What can I do to break the cycle?
Yeah, so I think if anyone needs to take a regulation break, you can get up if you want. No pressure. But I think I would work with a lot of families that equalizing can get very dangerous between siblings. So siblings might try to kill other siblings. They might try to strangle them. I'm actually not going to, so it can get very dangerous. I think what's really important is safety for everyone. So if there's equalizing going on between siblings, I would really make sure that you have like a plan. So I would figure out how to move that sibling who might be getting injured into a safe place. So I'd always have a plan, move them into a safe place, and you're thinking about modeling regulation and creating safety and predictability. So you could always, like, you can hold boundaries with PDAers if you explain why. So you can just keep saying, like, I need to move your sibling into the other room because we need to keep them safe. And you just keep repeating that boundary, and you're modeling regulation through that. Does that make sense? So it's always safety for everyone. So I'd always make sure you're prioritizing that. You just want to have a plan.
My little boy is very impulsive, will often do things he knows not to do, like pulling or grabbing. This could be in a playground where he spent 20 minutes on a swing, which will help regulating, but he still has the urge to grab. Any suggestions?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry. My little boy is very impulsive and will also impulsively do something he knows not to do. So even after 20 minutes on a swing, he might still pull somebody's hair or grab them.
Yeah, so that's because the swing is just vestibular input. He's seeking cause and effect. If you pull someone's hair or you push them over or do something, you're creating predictability. So I think what often happens is people think of regulation in isolated things. So it's like just the swing might be deep pressure or vestibular input, but it's not cause and effect. So when they come off the swing, they're going to try to create predictability, and they might knock someone's sandcastle over or something. So I always combine deep pressure, vestibular input, and cause and effect with everything, because then you're truly supporting regulation.
Student recently drinking excessive amounts of water, 9 bottles in a school day and the same at home. Could this be regulating for them, or is it something they have control over?
So anything like children eating non-food items or drinking lots of water, I would first make sure you go to your GP, because I think what's really important, what I found in my life, is that I don't show my medical illnesses the same as a neurotypical person. So I think it's really important because we mask and obviously show it differently. So like UTIs can show up differently. So I would just make sure you're ruling out anything medical. And that's what I look for, because I think when you drink excessive water, you can maybe be diabetic. So just important to rule it out. But then it's also looking at water drinking is regulating. If you've seen me absolutely drink constantly throughout this presentation. But what I would think about is, okay, water is regulating them. How can we make it more regulating? So just a normal water bottle over there. It's just like a screw top water bottle. You knock it back and you just drink it. It's not that difficult to drink. Whereas my water is a Walla. I don't have any sponsorships, but or like Stanley's are the same thing. There's a straw in it, so my mouth muscles have to work harder to drink. So I'm actually getting deep pressure to drink water, so it's more regulating. So that's why loads of people have lovely water bottles around the room, because hopefully you know what I mean. So I would look at the way he's drinking water and try to make it more regulating. So maybe trying a new fun water bottle, where like sports water bottles are really good because you have to really suck to get the drink.
Just dentists will hate me, but sparkling water is also really regulating. We have more questions. We might try and answer them in the next panel, but we need to have a 5-minute break. So if we can be back again for, sorry, 1:15, please.